Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage one of Tour of Valencia. Just happens to be day one of the Butterfly Effect 2025 also. Before I get into today's stage one though, I want to let the Patreon subscribers know that we have a Q&A video planned for February 10th. Send your questions in before 10 a.m. on February 10th, and we'll highlight that in our video set up the release on YouTube shortly thereafter. Now let's get into today's stage one of Tour of Valencia. What do we have in store for us? Well, it's a team time trial. Anytime you're at home and you're preparing for your first races of the season and you're going into the team time trial, you know the stomach's going to be a little bit nervous because you got to survive with only 6 other teammates going as hard as you possibly can for 34.4 kilometers. Now the course here is not crazy difficult. There's only 260 meters of vertical climbing, and it's point to point coming inland, finishing on the coast, with the only real technical sections being some roundabouts. And then in the last 1K, it gets really technical, dropping down to the coast where it'll round the bend and finish out after a left turn. Now we start looking at the cameras coming on proper. It's Alpecin de Koninck up there. They're flying through and they're going 13 seconds up on Euskaltel-Euskadi with a time of 41.26. Now we know their time's not going to be spectacular fast because they're only 13 seconds up on Euskaltel-Euskadi. So Caden Groves, their sprinter's not going to be putting the race leader's jersey on anytime soon here at the Valencia Tour. Might have to wait another season. But we also know that shortly after they crossed the line, we started seeing some of the time checks out there, and Lidl-Trek is flying. They're going 21 seconds up on the time of Jaco Lula, who's going 1:20 up on the time of Alpecin de Koninck. So next team to cross the line is Jaco Lula. They're flying across the line with Ben O'Connor, and they got a fantastic time, 1:20 up on the time there of Alpecin de Koninck to put themselves in the hot seat. But like I already told you, and like they gave us a sneak peek, Lidl-Trek's out on the course, and they're flying. Once Lidl-Trek comes down the lefts and rights all the way into the coast, they got 4 guys left on the front. That Matej Vacek there, the Czech TT time trial champion, sitting on his wheel. That's Johnny Milan. Johnny Milan's won some stages of the Giro d'Italia last year, if you remember correctly. So they have some objectives here with the team time trial and then stages 4 and 5 for sure for Johnny Milan. But right now, when they're crossing the line, they're in the hot seat, 47 seconds up on the time of Jaco Lula with a time of 39.19. Now, we start looking further back at that picture, right? But if I rewind the film just a little bit, well, they had time trial champions in this list left and right. As we start looking behind Johnny Milan, that's Dan Uhl, the Netherlands TT champ. Behind him's Jakob Sodervist, the Sweden champion. So they had a fast time. But we got other quality TT teams out there. As we see on course, it's Team INEOS. Behind Team INEOS, we'll see it's UAE Team Emirates leaving the ramp with last year's winner here at Valencia wearing the U.S. champion TT jersey. That's Brandon McNulty. He's got another GC rider on his team too, because Almeida here, the Portuguese rider. With those 2 riders for sure riding for GC, you know UAE Team Emirates is going to have to put on a show on stage 1. Next to leave the ramp, we're going to see it's Bahrain Victorious. They have not 1, not 2, but 3 riders here trying to ride for GC because they got Jack Haig, Pale Bilbao, and then they have Santiago Buitrago. With 3 guys, you know Bahrain Victorious has to put on a show. And as they're leaving the ramp, well, we see Lidl-Trek coming up to the hot seat there with all their 7 riders sitting down, getting ready to see if any of the teams out there can break their time of 39.19. Out on the course next to leave the ramp, it's going to be Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe. This is an important race right here for Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe because Jai Hindley, he's a Giro d'Italia champ, and Vlasov, well, Vlasov's won some races in his past too, but there's no Primoz Roglic here. Without Primoz Roglic, that means Jai Hindley and Vlasov have their opportunity to start winning early in the 25 season. Now we start looking at INEOS on course. As we see their front rider pulling off all the way left out to the outer reaches of the galaxy, I still can't understand why a team like INEOS is still doing this in their TT races. As we know, each time a rider pulls all the way off to the left, no one's getting a draft off of that rider. I always think keep it tight. Not so tight to cause some chaos when you're dropping back off the front. But as you're dropping back, you can be either giving a draft to the riders coming up by you, depending on the wind direction, it's never straight headwind. That's so rare, it's ridiculous to think about. So either you're going to give a draft to the riders passing you if you stay closer, or possibly if you're hurting as you're going 3, 4, 5 wheels back, possibly they start giving you a little bit of draft and then you can get back onto the wheel. But INEOS love flying out to the galaxy and coming back on, so that's the way we see them riding. When they cross the line, they're in third place with a time of 40 minutes and 11 seconds, 52 seconds slower than Lidl-Trek. But Lidl-Trek don't have a GC rider. But if I back forward the film up just a little bit and show you the team in second place, Jaco Lula, they do have a GC rider. His name's Ben O'Connor. Remember he was second at the Vuelta a España? Well, they're sitting tight up on the general classification with no GC guys in front of them, only Lidl-Trek, but they're not racing for mountains here. They're only racing for stages 4 and 5 after today's team time trial if they can win here. Now, we start looking as INEOS is in third. UAE team members are flying on the course right now, but they're dropping riders. As they start dropping down to their 5th rider, we'll see the last rider, Julius, pull off. That leaves 4 up front. But these 4 riders up front, Almeida's one of them. Gross-Schartner's one of them. Brandon McNulty, last year's winner. When we start looking at the 4th rider, that's Sivakov. That means all 4 of these guys know if they stay together, they could be a threat on the general classification. As they start bombing down into the coast where it gets real technical, Brandon McNulty sitting 3rd wheel and he starts opening up a gap, not being able to hold the pace of Almeida up front. Almeida comes out of the last left, looks over his shoulder, sees there's a bit of a gap. The camera's just fading off, and I'm almost 100% certain, no, Almeida's giving a little shake of the head because he knows they're crossing the line for 3rd, 40 minutes, 10 seconds. This will keep them tight on the general classification, but they lost about 50 seconds to Lidl-Trek. That means Lidl-Trek knows when they're sitting in the hot seat and you see them over there with the little dog as the mascot running around, these guys are starting to celebrate because there's only a couple other teams out there on the course that can dislodge them. One's Bahrain Victorious, but they're not the ones to do it as they cross the line for 6th, 1 minute and 12 seconds back from Lidl-Trek. But Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe is still the last team out there to finish. As Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe's coming into 1 kilometer to go, we see the clocks getting just about even with the winning time of Lidl-Trek. That means at 900 meters to go, Lidl-Trek start partying as Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe comes down the technical section. They'll cross the line 4th on the stage, 51 seconds back from Lidl-Trek. Now, when everything's said and done, Lidl-Trek's partying up on the podium for sure. But the GC guys don't have a whole lot to worry right here, especially if you're Ben O'Connor, because I've already told you he's sitting in the hot seat in terms of GC teams. We look at the leader of today's stage after the team time trial. That's Mateusz Waszek there from Lidl-Trek. As he gives his interview, of course, he thanks all his teammates. Then he says what surprises me. He says he wants to keep the jersey and he's going to try to keep the jersey after tomorrow's stage 2. That means he has to get over Col de Rates. Col de Rates is one of the famous climbs that all the European teams do when they're down here for training camp in early January, and it just happens to be the #1 ranked rider in the world, Tadej Pogačar, holds the Strava record on the Col de Rates. So Waszek has to get over to Col de Rates. He has to drop down that, and then he has to survive some of the best second-page riders in the world attacking him up the last 2 climbs. The last 2 climbs come in succession, so it's really one big climb to the finish. Can Waszek do it? I don't think so. I don't think I would be talking about trying to hold on to the race leader's jersey here with Ben O'Connor 47 seconds behind me, with Almeida just behind me sitting top 10, with Brandon McNulty there, with Jai Hindley, with Vlasov there, with Carlos Rodriguez from Team INEOS. These riders are all really close on general classification. So we have a magnificent battle building for tomorrow's stage 2. Can Waszek hold on to it? Will one of the other GC favorites that are not holding the race leader's jersey, will one of these teams ride the front tomorrow, or will we see Lidl-Trek riding from start to finish? I think we might see him soft pedal when the director sportif says, Waszek, it's a tall order to think you're going to hold it on stage 2. But it's going to be interesting to watch from the Chesterfield. So like and subscribe. The big battle starts on tomorrow's stage 2 for Valencia. I'll call it here on the Butterfly Effect. See you guys on the next edition for stage 2 of Valencia real soon.